etc., you get all of this. All of that information is available.
It's available.
So, I mean, we're in the 21st century. We're in the information age as well. So nobody should be struggling with, for example, erectile dysfunction. There are solutions, you know. But it's about having honest conversations amongst couples. To say, Joe, I'm struggling a little bit. Hey, it's not getting up the way it used to. And then walk through that together as a couple and work through it together. That's how you solve it.
Right.
The second you think, let me go to Sbanban, problems.
Then,
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
Long as I'm alive, I'ma make a plan. Strong hosts to break, got long walks to take, got no votes to make. We don't bet, we pray. Hey, African man, yeah. The African male iris through the eye of an African male.
Do you have any questions from the GMs?
Yes.
'Cause I have two.
Okay, so from a male perspective, how do you continue being a man when roles are reversed?
This is a very tricky question.
When roles are reversed.
So when roles are reversed, so maybe the woman is now earning more, for example.
you may
Sounds
be
like money.
you may be losing your
sounds like
job.
money, yeah.
It's money related.
Yeah.
It could be even, but I think we touched on the leadership aspect of knowing where each one's strength is. But I think more inclined to the finance side.
Yeah.
How do you continue being a man?
We need to redefine some of these things, guys. It's sad that as exposed as we are, and actually as educated as we are, we're still just as traditional, right? And it's problematic because it's not helping us as men. Patriarchy as a system, it doesn't help men. If anything, it's killing us. That's why men, for example, in South Africa are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. It's
4 times?
4 times more likely.
That's bad.
They're 2 times more likely to binge drink than women, right? It's stemming from all of these things. Indoda must. A man has to have more money than a woman. And let's calm down. It's the 21st century. Our fathers, during their time, had the luxury of being the only ones who could provide, because back then, not a lot of women were in the workspace.
No.
Right? But now we're finding a lot more women are getting educated. Right now, if you go and check the stats in terms of you're into real estate, who's buying more homes? It's single women.
100%.
More than men.
Yeah, that's true.
100%.
Worldwide, actually.
Worldwide, actually.
Yeah.
So based off of that, women are far more capable now of making even more money than we can make. Yeah. It's quite possible. So for me, I don't think it's wise to define one's manhood based off of how much one earns. Because I think when you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure.
But I think the opposite side of the coin, the challenge is those women that are doing better, that are more successful, they still want
a man who's
doing
got more.
better than them.
Nah, bro. I disagree. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
We have had instances of, I'm sure you've read some of these cases where like a woman is a nurse, she's working, she's got a house, etc. She withdraws her entire pension fund and goes and gives it to Jimmy that she met online. Jimmy who doesn't work. Or she goes and buys Jimmy a flipping car.
Yes.
So I think all of this stems from, again, it's stemming from patriarchy, where we think women are only attracted, to some degree, it has some element of truth, that women are attracted to men that are successful. But there are also women, right now as we speak, I know of a couple of people, very successful, very lonely as well. And they're awesome. Guys, you're not shellering us, you're not asking us out. Why? And they actually had a point where they think, our levels of success are too high. They scare off a lot of men. So for me, the whole thing is, can we just look at money for what it is? Money is a tool. That's it. It's a tool. It's a tool that's meant to make our lives easier. And it's also an energy. And you need to understand how that energy works and how that tool works. And you can either have it or don't, right? But also, you will not be able to earn the same amount of money with your partner. That's never going to happen. Either you earn more or she earns more. It's as simple as that. So I think it's about conversations again.
Right.
And the agreements that we come to as a couple. How do we handle money? I'll give you an example. I work hard, but I trust my wife more with my money.
Right.
because I think I suck. I think I'm great at making it. I don't think I'm great at keeping it.
My wife is good with
right?
money,
So I'd rather just say, okay, dude, listen, we've made X.
So you just submit and say,
dude, we've made X amount of money.
We do that monthly budget, and most of the time she knows how to allocate. And
That's so for me, that's an example.
Right.
So it could very well be that there are also women who know how to make it, but don't know how to spend it or how to manage it. So I think, again, for me, relationships should always be a negotiated enterprise, right? So your manhood is certainly not and should never be about your income. This is not to say don't work hard. Work hard, make as much as you can, but don't attach your manhood. And I'll tell you why you shouldn't. COVID came.
Right.
It messed a lot of people up.
Yo, dude, I am one of them.
Right? If I tell you, well, I'm glad you're sitting here.
Right.
You're actually one of the blessed ones because I know of a lot of people, men that took their own lives. Suicide rates went exponentially high because now all their years, these men were defining themselves as providers.
Right.
Now you're in a position where you can't provide. I'll give an example. I think what Prayer and I do, it's more or less not the same thing, but it's essentially you're running your own thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
COVID came. If you were running your own thing, there was no money you were making.
Yeah.
Zero.
100%.
Yeah.
Nada.
That's me with entertainment as well. Yeah.
Right?
Nothing was happening.
So in cases like that, I can tell you how we stayed afloat. Apart from having savings and other investments, etc., we stayed afloat because my wife works a normal job. If she didn't, we would have been in trouble.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying, please don't define your manhood based off of the amount of income that you make, etc., because it's always going to be problematic. It's also the same reason why we then have men that are highly successful that now think they can rape women because I have the money, I have the power. It's all stemming from thinking that money gives you the authority to do whatever you want. And it shouldn't be like that. It's simply a tool that's supposed to make the relationship easier to handle, that's supposed to make life easier. See it as such.
Right.
That's a good one.
I mean, I think that's a sticky one. I'd really love to hear what the women think because I can understand men struggling with it because naturally you want to feel this sense of achievement. So you want to feel like you want to feel trusted.
Yeah.
You want to feel like you're a good leader enough to at least pay these bills and all of the bills, or at least to pay more bills than your partner does, right? So I can understand it from a man's perspective because I'm a man naturally. So I would get why the amount of money I make is such a big thing for me. But I also feel like this pressure that sort of creates the reason why men attach their identity a lot to the amount of money they make also comes from women because women see it the same way. And men
it's worse
will
now with social media, right?
Yeah, worse with social media because then what will happen is there are these, I don't know what to call them. They're phrases that are part of a time.
Yeah.
There's a German word for it. It's called Zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Which means a spirit of the time. There's things that are part of the spirit of the time.
Yeah.
One of those things are what you mentioned, Indodamast. And then there's also a phrase like, if he wanted to, he would. And then what those things say are, those are subliminal messages that a lot of women use and phrases that they use when they're celebrating their man. When they celebrate their man, they're saying, Indota must do 1, 2, 3, 4. Because they have a daughter who's doing those things, right? So it means that when you're sitting there and you're just the woman you're smart, you're very good with money, so you can pay 70% of the bills, but your partner pays 30% of the bills. But the two of you have an understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
But then she's working at a job where she has a girl who's got the same skill set or maybe less skills than her, but she has an Indotamast who's doing those things.
Yeah.
Right? And so now those two are blending because this guy attaches his identity with his money. This woman says Indota must and Indota is doing. Right? Then her friend feels like my daughter is not doing. So now this daughter now starts to feel some type of way because it's also, he could have made peace with the fact that I can do 30% of the bills, but I'm going to work so that I can at least do more. Maybe I can do 50 in the next 6 months or whatever.
Yeah.
And then maybe they have their own agreement or he makes peace with it. But then now they go there for the braai, and then now they're braaiing with Indota Mast, and Indota is not. And then now it's like the social dynamic starts being...
Oh, because remember now, the wife being high up there, of course, the people she surrounds herself with are also well-to-do, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And when the conversations begin and the husband says, no, well, I'm just already...
trying to get by or whatever. So with those kind of couples or those kind of situations, how do you navigate those?
So there are what we call foundational conversations that must be had between couples before we take the plunge.
Of being couples.
Of being couples, of getting married.
Okay.
The first one is money conversations.
Right.
They need to happen.
Right.
Because if we don't have money conversations, then that might actually ultimately lead to a divorce at some point, right? So number one, what is your money personality like? Where do you see yourself in the next couple of years? What do you want to do in terms of money? What are you doing to make money? What am I doing to make money? How do we want money to be regulated in this relationship?
Right.
Between the two of us, is there somebody perhaps that's specifically skilled at handling money than the other? Are they willing to take, charge of handling that? Or how are we setting up money? So that's why I always tell people that it's not enough that he's tall, dark and handsome. It used to be, but it's not enough anymore. Or it's not enough that she's... What do people... I don't like yellow bones personally, but people like them yellow and mellow. I'm more of a Papa Penny type. I like both bones.
Right.
But people like yellow and mellow, so I'll use that as an example. It's not enough that she's yellow and mellow. Does she have a good head on her shoulder? Does she understand money? Because all of us have money personalities as well. That's the other thing.
Right.
So there are some of us who are spenders, some of us who are savers, some of us who are so thrifty that, it's too much. It's almost like you're stingy as well.
Right.
And that sort of stifles the relationship. So you want to be able to understand all of this before you commit to someone, because it's important, right? And then it's also important to understand backgrounds. Do we come from more or less the same background?
That's important.
Or do you come from a worse off background than me, such that at some point we're going to see ourselves having to take a portion of whatever money we make collectively, taking it to your parents or to your homestead or not. So there's nothing wrong with that, but it's got to be negotiated.
Yeah.
Over and above that, is the decision we're making that your money is my money and my money is your money? Or is everyone keeping their own portion?
Right.
You make your money, I make mine, and perhaps maybe we have a joint account where we all deposit
and we
pay bills from there. We've agreed that our living expenses come off of there. So we need to have all of these conversations before we actually make the decision to be with each other. And gents, because obviously African male Irish, so there's a bias towards the
Of course.
Gents, it's not enough for her to be yellow and mellow anymore. She's got to be making paper. Very important.
Right.
But she's also got to know how to manage that paper.
Okay.
Stay away from people who are so poor that the only thing they have is money. I'm going to repeat that. Stay away from people who are so poor that the only thing they have is money. They don't have respect. They don't see anyone that doesn't have any sort of money like they do. Those are dangerous people. And these are people whose identities are tied only to their bank account and what's in it. And I don't think it's worth it being in a relationship with somebody like that.
The P. Diddy's of the world.
Nah, it's not worth it, because they will always find ways of belittling you. They will always find ways of disrespecting you on the basis that they're sorted, they've got money. That's, for me, money, like I kept saying, is just a tool, right? So find somebody that sees value in who you are, somebody that that also then makes you want to do better, because that's important.
Right.
But also somebody that has more or less the same vision with you in terms of where your life is going. It doesn't have to be the same, but at least it's got to be aligned in one way or the other. Find you a good woman that's willing to support your vision, and in the same vein, you should be willing to support her vision, and you're set for life.
Right.
And you'll never have those problems where somebody says, hey, you're asking for what for pap? Do you know that I'm the vice president of Google? You never get that.
Right.
So well, I'm just deviating a bit, but I think I came across a podcast where they were talking about, raising children in the modern day society.
Yeah.
And there's a father who was just saying that, you know what, guys, as much as we are trying to shield our children from growing up the way we've grown up, do we also realize that some of the qualities or strengths we have are because of how we grew up?
Yeah.
Of the challenges we faced, of the things that we necessarily were not given to us. But we are busy flooding our children with almost everything that we feel they have to have to ensure they don't live like how we grow up, like how we grew up. So that's what I'm just saying. I wanted to ask, like, how do we ensure right now that we don't raise
a bunch
children?
bunch of softies.
And entitled children,
So discipline must be disciplined. Let me explain. There is undisciplined discipline. And part of what you're speaking to, ladies and gents, money does not replace parenting. It never should. So if you think buying your child the latest iPhone is being a good parent, no. Right? If you think buying them the latest Xbox or PlayStation or Jordans or whatsoever, that's a consequence of you having worked hard. Nothing wrong with that, but that should not replace the parental voice. That should not replace the values, the morals that you're supposed to instill in them. And I think it's important for us to understand, perhaps even define what parenting is. Parenting is essentially stewardship. You don't own those children. They do not belong to you. And over and above that, your primary role as a parent is to prepare them for the challenges they're likely to face in their futures.
Right.
So every single thing that happens between you and your child should be a teaching moment.
Right.
Every single thing. And so it's got to be a careful balance of not being because I think our parents tried their best that they could, but also let's not run away from the fact that our parents, because of what was happening then, I think many of us, our parents lived during apartheid, they lived during colonialism, and they were in survival mode.
Yeah.
So because they were in survival mode, there was no time for emotions. Mommy, I'm feeling sad. They didn't have time for that. But we cannot raise our children in the way that we were raised because it's a different time. Certainly, yes, there are challenges, but the hope would be we're not in survival mode. So number one, have a relationship with the child, because a relationship is the vehicle through which you transmit values, through which you transmit morals, through which you transmit principles, through which you teach what is right and what is wrong. So a relationship. And you having given birth to them is not a relationship.
Right.
Wow. A relationship needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
So it means spending time with them. It means that listening to them, right? And doing your best to understand them. So it can't be you can't resort to what our parents used to do. Yeah, I gave birth to you, so you must do it. That doesn't.
I'm your father.
I'm your father.
I'm your father.
They're likely to answer, my paternity is not in question. So I don't know why you're telling me you're my father. So have a relationship.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, lead by example. Very important.
Yes.
It's easier. What people don't realize is that children learn from you all the time. And a lot of the times they learn from what you do as opposed to what you say.
Right.
The motherland, the African man. Long as I'm alive, I'ma make a plan. Strongholds to break, got long walks to take, got no votes to make. We don't bet, we pray. Hey, African man, yeah. The African male iris through the eye of an African.